And clearly there is a lot to think about there. No doubt you'll have many opinions about what we've been discussing. So once again, I do want to stress you can email, you can call, or you can text us with your thoughts, because actually you really make the programme in terms of your thoughts. Now, sectarianism is undoubtedly something you associate with Northern Ireland. I lived through it myself. It has a history of tensions between Catholics and Protestants. But it's a problem in Scotland as well. And although violent attacks are small in number, the issue is continuing to cause concern. Now, it's been condemned this month by the Scottish Catholic leader, Cardinal Keith O'Brien, and by the country's First Minister, who dubbed it Scotland's secret shame. Sally Magnuson has been to Glasgow to investigate the history of Scottish sectarianism and to look at the work being done to counteract religious and social divisions.
Sectarianism is not a huge problem in Scotland, let's be clear about that. But in the areas where it does exist, primarily in parts of Glasgow, it can be ugly and vicious. It's a complicated social phenomenon rooted in history. In the 1830s, Scotland was the destination of thousands of Irish immigrants who flocked here to find work. The majority of the immigrants were Roman Catholic, and they set up a number of exclusively Catholic organisations. One of them was their own football club, Celtic. The club's first game was on May the 28th, 1888, against the already established Protestant side, Rangers. And so the phrase, the Old Firm, was created to describe the two sides when they meet to play. So football became the traditional outlet for the social frustrations of Protestants and Catholics in Glasgow. And the game has continued to fuel sectarianism.
This is ridiculous that this should have happened at the Scottish Cup final.
Hugh Dallas also needed stitches in the head after being hit by a coin thrown from the crowd. Police made more than 100 arrests and the Scottish Sports Minister was called for a full report.
Donald Gorie, MSP, felt so strongly about the Catholic and Protestant divide in Glasgow that he drew up a bill and presented it to the Scottish Parliament.
I tabled an amendment to a government bill adding that if a person committed an existing offence like a breach of the peace or an assault, if the court believed that was motivated by religious hatred, that the person got a bigger penalty.
Last year, Father Stephen Dunn, whose parish is in a largely Protestant area of Glasgow, was subjected to a violent assault.
I was walking along one evening with a Chinese carry-out and a fellow came up and turned and hit me. I ran for my life because I was scared in case he had a knife. I've had a brick, stone thrown at the window trying to take the glass panes out. The thing that's very frightening is that people trying to kick the door in. They run up and let's try and kick the door as hard as they can. They do succeed in terrorising you. I'm fortunate to some degree because of my age. I know a number of elder priests who were before me found it very hard, and about 3 or 4 years was the most they could manage to take.
Alison Elliott, a former moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, believes that Scots need to take heed of the lessons learned from the wider world.
I mean, you watch the television programmes and you see what's going on in Lebanon, and then you turn to think about sectarianism in Scotland and you think, you know, what's the problem? At one level, it's very mild compared with that, but you're aware that the embers are there that could ignite at any time, because people in Sarajevo thought that everything was fine between the communities, and then it all exploded. So I think people are genuinely worried that it's something which might well open up again.
In order to address sectarianism as well as other social issues, Rangers and Celtic football clubs have formed an alliance and are now working with the next generation together to try and change attitudes.
I think sectarianism is wider than just being football related. I think sectarianism, I think the definition is somebody being discriminative to another person because of their religion. I think it just too easily in Scotland it gets tagged towards Rangers and Celtic. I think the clubs realise that it is a social issue, and we are doing joint work to try and combat this problem that does exist.
To what extent would you say that Celtic and Rangers are no longer becoming Catholic and Protestant clubs as far as their support's concerned?
Maybe years ago it would be that you'd go into a denominational school, a non-denominational school, and they would have allegiances, to one club or the other. Now it's changing. Kids have the confidence and have the education to make their own choices, and it's almost a 50-50 split.
What we're trying to get across to them is that they support their team in the right way, and they don't dislike somebody because of the football strip that they wear, or ultimately because of their race or religion.
Kids are confident enough to support their club, whether it's Rangers or Celtic, no matter what their religion.
What else springs to mind? Sectarianism. Teams, as in football teams.
PEAK, which stands for Possibilities for East End Kids, is another anti-sectarianism initiative which runs workshops with young people in the Bridgeton area of Glasgow.
Why are you doing this sectarian project?
Young people have been coming along to us for some time and taking part in the different projects in PEAK, and it became very evident that they had concerns, they had particular attitudes around sectarianism. So we felt, we had to combat that and try and break down those barriers, teasing that out and getting them to think more about the positives and the consequences and how they can challenge it.
Have you had any experience of it yourself?
And me and my little brother were walking up the road with my gran, and me and my brother had our Rangers kits on, and a Celtic fan walked up and spat on my gran because we were wearing our Rangers tops.
So what do you think is the best way to make the situation better?
I think you'd have to try and get it through to people by talking to them, stuff like that first.
I think things are improving. When I think back to being a child, at that time it was part of the cut and thrust of Scottish life that sectarian jokes were told. You knew that there was discrimination going on, and somehow this was not as much of an issue as it is now. And I think that what's happened is we're more aware of human rights, we're more aware of the dangers of discrimination, and so again, from our wider experience, we now look at sectarian attitudes and think, oh my goodness, this is something that is really serious. And so it's that kind of double thing, that on the one hand, because we're more aware of it, I think it's getting less. But equally, because we're more aware of it, any instances of it become possibly magnified much more than they would have done before.
A lot of people have become accustomed to outrageous songs. It's just part of the thing here. But when the Europeans see this on the television, a lot of Italians or Spaniards are not too impressed by very unpleasant songs about the Pope being sung by football supporters. We have to come into the modern age and behave in a civilised manner that our European neighbours find acceptable.
There are still drunken louts around who claim to be Protestant, but they don't have any Christian faith. Protestants are of the Christian faith, the same as Catholics are, believing in Christ, the love of God, but they're looking for an outlet for their aggression, their thuggish aggression.
A lot of what passes for sectarianism in Scotland today is rooted in many other things than religious difference. But in the pockets where it's found, it can be scary and dangerous. Now that the new football season is underway in Scotland, the hope is that the work being done at all levels to combat it will be paying off.
Well, now, Wai, you grew up in Glasgow, so I know you were watching that report very carefully. Did you suffer at the hands of sectarianism?
Tremendously. I mean, I lived in you saw Ibrox Stadium there. I lived in the same street as Sir Alex Ferguson did and went to the same school. And almost the first question you get asked in any conversation is, what school did you go to? So therefore, are you a Protestant or a Catholic? I'm a Jew. Are you a Protestant Jew? You're a Catholic Jew. But it's defined that way. And I think, certainly when I grew up, a wee while ago, and I hope it's changed, it was split. Scotland was split. It was two camps. And there's the historical perspective to that, and the Irish immigration, and it took on a nationalist feel. And even recently at Celtic, and believe it or not, at Celtic Rangers matches, the Celtic fans were waving Palestinian flags, and the Rangers fans were waving Israeli flags. I mean, so how mental is that?
Yeah.
So, but it was very pervasive and very nasty.
I was interested in what Sally was saying there in the report about schemes with young people, because when I was growing up in Northern Ireland, I mean, Catholics lived one end of the town, Protestants the other, and neither the twain really met. Yeah. But I believe that in Northern Ireland terms, that really to wipe out this hatred that's been, dropped down from